Good morning. Quickly checking in. Yeah, running through my thoughts for the last few days, 24 hours, 48 hours of this. Bonjour, buongiorno. Yes, we're here. You're doing what it takes to keep you all enlightened, keep you all refreshed in the very knowledge that yes, somebody out here loves you all. Somebody at this very same time, we're loving ourselves and we're loving each other out there. And I don't want to come across as all soppy or all ultra hyper romantic. It's just sentiment I'm sending out. Those who understand what unconditional love is about. Culture, we see that in everything, and some people may love you but they may not love your culture. It's unfortunate because we're all embedded deep in culture, behavior, knowledge, traditions that they carry on. The lovely thing about the diversity of the world, the UK is classed as an actual cultural superpower. That is the description they have given of the UK in its ability to work within the world stage, but also have its own identity, but also welcome on board many cultures. Will have a history that is seeped within the British Isles, the United Kingdom, the Kingdom of Countries, and they all have their own culture. The UK's culture, when I looked at it, it was described as having a love for standing in queues and also for the stiff upper lip, and also being sorry very frequently. So they find that English people during conversations will apologize, will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, old chap." Very quintessentially English thing to do. And English people are classed as very polite. Sweden, France have all got their own levels of culture that has become very popular throughout the world. Seen as very creative. The Italians, again, are seen as very creative and they have their own culture. And you can look into what is Italian culture, what is French culture, what is Swedish culture, what is very Germanic, what is very likes and dislikes. The Scottish, they have their likes and their dislikes. The Australians, the New Zealanders, they all have their own likes and dislikes. So throughout the world, on country, there's usually a warm, welcoming greeting that you receive from them. Some may not be as welcoming, but that is unfortunate. That is not nothing that you can't get over. They may be having a bad day. And I looked at all the cultures throughout the centuries, and I looked at celebrity culture, and I also looked at a thing called peculiar culture. And I put these both together. The culture is totally different from peculiar culture. Peculiar culture is something that's quite new. We know what celebrity culture is, and I mentioned some of them. I mentioned Humphrey Bogart. There were female icons. Bridget Bardot, seen as a very cultural icon. Britt Eklund, seen as icons. Oprah Winfrey, and there are some modern day ones as well. Kyle Jenner, seen as very highly sought after people. Kim Kardashian, Oprah Winfrey. These are so I'm going to try and investigate on this phenomena that is cultural within us all, and look at it in all the different angles, all the different nuances, and hopefully, tongue in cheek, bring out some of the cultural differences that we all have and why are they so important to each cultural group and the individual. Of course, we have religion, and I'm going to try and stay away from religion for obvious reasons. Steeped in culture, within our culture, some countries are stark believers of their religion, of their faith. And who am I to question their faith? And faith is another word. Many songs have used this title. And music has always been a cultural leader when it comes to social aspects, social behavior, and future, and some of the past, and our dreams, our hopes, our beliefs. We can use music to convey messages all the time. And culturally, that is something that most countries have their own cultural types of music. And I mentioned this when I talked about the experiments that have been done by certain institutions when they look at music both culturally and how it is affected by outside environments and outside influences. We all are influenced on what is within our safe environments. We all like to listen to new things and get to know what is happening out there. This is cultural. This is knowledge. And knowledge is cultural. Music brings knowledge. And I'm trying to bring music into the homes of more people in a different way than we've ever looked at it before. And hopefully we edify, we educate. And I gain a lot out of this because it is me giving something. And I'm giving it freely. And they're going to come out thicker and faster, more intense, and giving you a lot more deeper insights on different subjects that I want to understand. So hopefully we get a cultural understanding of each other's needs. So programming is going on, it's ever going on, ever increasing programming of you and of I, of everybody out there, to think a certain way, to act a certain way, to feel a certain way and behave a certain way, and be the voice of reason out there with all the chaos and all the different opinions. And of lately, all I seem to hear is culture, culture, and culture. Some people are celebrating the culture, while some decide the culture needs to be attacked, attacking it from all angles, from the cultural, spiritual, and emotional side. Physically, the attacks. What I find more disturbing is that we're now being told to ignore the abuse, ignore the attacks, be the bigger man, be the bigger person, and that's laughable when you're constantly being attacked by people who know that a lot of the times they can turn the tables and play the victim. And this might come as a surprise to some of you that we know this. We know that some people out there play the victim. They charge on an assault on an individual, on their character, on their community. And it's taking many forms nowadays because it's becoming where if a person of any distinctive features does anything, then the whole culture, the whole group is then blamed for that one individual. It's distasteful because this is only happens when it's to do with particularly the black community. One black person goes out and commits a crime, then the whole community has to feel the shame. What I find distasteful is that the people who are perpetrators then go out and wear this as a badge of honor of being bad, being crazy, being bad people. The law then teams up with the media and the lynch mobs come out and they then go out gunning for blood. After the soldiers had come back from the Second World War during the 1945s, some of them went into areas that had already been ruled heavily under the Jim Crow laws and rules, how black slaves could move around. Unfortunately, America was changing for these so-called racists and slaveholders. Things were changing very, very quickly. Overnight, people were demanding their own freedom, civil rights, and this was rightly so. That's why it's called civil rights. These people who are slave owners believed that they were civilizing an uncivilized bunch of people by whipping, torture, taking away children, and often doing barbaric acts to enforce their rule of law. Their other individuals, often families, whole groups of people were being forced to farms, picking cotton, looking after children, looking after the farm, all for next to nothing. And this was way over 30-40 years and the Jim Crow slavery was still in full effect in the South, teamed up and caused murderous acts, oppressing them, killing them, torturing them, and continuing the rule of slavery. So when I talk about culture, I like to talk about the whole entire branch of our culture: the fashion, the clothes, the attitude, and some of the experiences, good and bad and indifferent, that our communities endured, both in America, both in Africa, and in the UK, Europe, through the migration that went on. Some of it was through refugees looking to seek better homes in warmer or wealthier climates. This is now happening in places like Ukraine, where I've looked at some of the media report war that is happening now in Ukraine. While I'm in a country that supports Ukraine's actions to defend itself, I also have to scrutinize some of the actions that Ukraine took during this period of when the war broke out. There were migrants at the borders who complained of the treatment that they had under the Ukraine government and Ukraine soldiers and border force officers. And even the news media, how they reported the migration of these refugees. They did not resemble refugees. Emotional beings, all humans are emotional beings, and during emotional times we revert back to our emotional language, our emotional, the way that they handle a situation, be it very emotional, but it was still a situation that was an emergency for everybody, no matter what your color was. So we have to talk about culture in a positive way, in that our culture, we have a should discuss it. We should not feel frightened or intimidated not to have platforms to discuss our history. Our history is as deep and as rich as every other race's history. But I find, regardless of whether people stand up for their rights just by talking and not reverting to any form of physical abuse to one another, then I think we're making some progress. And I'm going to continue to make that progress and sometimes come on and talk about controversial issues. No hard feelings to all those who don't like black people, and to those who do, we keep saluting you regardless of your color. Our culture has put a great stamp on this world, and we will continue to be part of history as long as the world keeps revolving. And as we know, we are not the most important, we are not the least important, we are as important as everybody else. We are all the same, and whether you want to believe that or not, that is the truth, and that is the truth I will continue to hit home.